in the heart of a small Texas town where the dusty streets seemed to hold stories of generations past. Emma Collins stood beneath the unforgiving midday sun, her hand resting lightly on the weathered gate of the sprawling ranch she had just purchased. The late spring breeze teased strands of her chestnut hair, but it could not brush away the swirl of unease and determination that settled deep within her. 7 months pregnant and recently divorced, Emma was no stranger to hardship. Yet the weight of the town's judgment pressed heavily on her shoulders. The ranch stretched out before her, a vast expanse of rolling fields and untamed brush, dotted with the skeletal remains of old barns and fences that had long surrendered to neglect. To the casual observer, it was a property past its prime, a forgotten relic that no longer held value in a world racing toward progress and profit. But Emma saw something different. A promise, a challenge, and perhaps a new beginning. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss a new video. And tell me, where are you watching this video from? I love seeing all different people come together for these stories. As she stood there, the low murmur of voices drifted from the nearby general store where the townsfolk gathered in their habitual cluster. She knew the whispers were about her. The young woman, visibly heavy with child, daring to claim a piece of land that most had written off. Her purchase had become the subject of gossip and speculation almost overnight, and the skepticism was palpable. "Did you see what Emma Collins did?" A grizzled man's voice cut through the chatter. "Bought that old ranch out by the creek. Reckless, if you ask me, especially with a baby on the way." A woman's laughter followed, sharp and dismissive. "She's got no business trying to run a place like that. Probably just throwing money away." Emma's jaw tightened, though she kept her expression calm. She had heard it all before. The doubts that came with being a woman alone in a town where tradition ran as deep as the roots of the ancient oaks lining Main Street. But more than judgment, there was pity. And that stung the most. She remembered the day she signed the papers, the weight of the pen in her hand as if it were a lifeline. The realtor had warned her gently, "It's a big responsibility, especially now." Emma had nodded, her resolve steeling. Responsibility was something she had come to understand intimately in recent months. The ranch was more than a property to her. It was a symbol of rebirth. After the divorce, after the heartbreak, after the endless nights of doubt and loneliness, Emma needed a place where she could rebuild not just a home, but a future for her child. The townsfolk might see ruin where she saw potential, but she was ready to prove them wrong. Her thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of a pickup truck, its tires crunching over gravel as it came to a stop nearby. An older man, his face weathered like the land he had tended for decades, stepped down. Mr. Lawson was a fixture in town, known for his quiet wisdom and an almost uncanny understanding of the ranches that speckled the county. He approached Emma with a slow, deliberate gait, his eyes narrowing briefly as he took in the scene before him. "You sure about this, Emma?" he asked, voice low and rough like the wind through the mesquite. "That place ain't what it used to be." Emma met his gaze evenly. "I know it's not perfect, but it's mine now." Mr. Lawson nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "There's more to that land than most folks see. You'll find that out soon enough." His words were cryptic, but they carried a weight that settled over Emma like a quiet promise. She thanked him, watching as he climbed back into his truck and disappeared down the dirt road, leaving her alone once more with the vastness before her. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over the fields, Emma felt the first stirrings of hope. The ranch, with its peeling paint and creaking gates, was not just a piece of earth. It was a canvas waiting to be painted with the colors of her dreams and determination. And though the townsfolk might doubt her, Emma was resolved to make this land a sanctuary for her child, a place where new stories could take root and flourish. She pulled her coat tighter around her growing belly and took a step forward, crossing the threshold into the unknown. The ranch house loomed ahead, silent and still, its windows reflecting the fading light like watchful eyes. Inside, dust motes danced in the air, and the scent of old wood and earth mingled, a reminder of years gone by and the lives that had once filled these rooms. Emma ran her hand along the cracked doorframe, feeling the coolness beneath her fingers. This was where she would make her stand, where she would nurture the fragile shoots of hope that had begun to grow within her. The town might see a reckless gamble, but Emma saw a future, one she intended to fight for with every fiber of her being. As night settled in, Emma sat on the porch, the rhythmic chorus of crickets a quiet soundtrack to her thoughts. The ranch was hers now, a place of challenge and promise intertwined. And with the baby moving gently inside her, she felt a connection to something greater, something that whispered of resilience, of strength, and the unyielding spirit of a woman ready to carve out her own path against the odds. Tomorrow, she would begin the work. But tonight, beneath the vast Texas sky, Emma allowed herself a moment of peace, letting the cool night air fill her lungs and the distant stars remind her that even in the darkest places, light could be found. The morning sun cast a pale light over the town, but the warmth it promised seemed to stop at the edge of the general store, where a small crowd had already gathered. Emma's name was on every tongue, whispered with a mixture of disbelief and scorn. News of her purchase had traveled faster than she expected, and the townsfolk wasted no time in making their opinions known. "They say she's got a baby on the way, and no one to help her run that place," muttered an elderly woman, clutching her shawl tighter as she spoke. What was she thinking, throwing her money into a sinking ship like that? A younger man shook his head, arms crossed. "It's a fool's errand. That ranch hasn't been worth a dime for years. She'll never manage it, especially not alone." Emma stood a short distance away, the sharp sting of their words cutting deeper than the dry wind that swept through the street. She had heard skepticism before, but the breadth of doubt here was overwhelming. It wasn't just that she was a woman or that she was pregnant. It was the way they questioned her strength, her resolve, her very right to claim a future for herself and her child. But beneath the surface of judgment, Emma noticed something else, a flicker of curiosity, a hint of something unspoken. The ranch, though forgotten by many, held a strange allure that even the most cynical couldn't entirely dismiss. As murmurs grew louder, an older man stepped forward from the crowd. Mr. Lawson, the neighbor from the day before. His presence commanded a subtle hush, his reputation as a seasoned rancher lending weight to his words. "Now, hold on a minute," he began, his voice steady yet edged with caution. "That ranch you're talking about, Emma's ranch, it ain't as worthless as you lot think. There's more going on there than meets the eye." The crowd shifted uneasily, some exchanging skeptical glances. Emma's heart lifted slightly at Mr. Lawson's defense, though she knew it was a delicate thing to earn trust in a community quick to judge. Mr. Lawson's gaze swept across the faces before him. "I've seen that land in its prime, and I've heard stories passed down about what it held. Water sources, fertile soil, and a history that's deeper than most realize. If anyone's got the grit to breathe life back into it, it's Emma." A few murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, but the majority remained unconvinced. The woman in the shawl scoffed. Stories don't pay the bills. She's got a baby to care for, not a dream to chase. Emma stepped forward then, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her chest. I'm not here to ask for your approval. I'm here because I believe in this land and I believe in what it can be. I'm not running away from my past or my future. I'm shaping it. Her words hung in the air, bold against the undercurrent of doubt. Some faces softened, others hardened. But Emma felt a quiet satisfaction in standing her ground, refusing to be silenced by whispers and sideways glances. Later that afternoon, as Emma wandered the edges of the ranch, the weight of the town's skepticism pressed on her like the thick Texas heat. Yet, beneath the sun-baked soil and tangled brush, she sensed a pulse, a life waiting to be awakened. She thought of the child growing inside her, a new generation tied to this land, and resolved to fight for every inch of possibility. Returning to the ranch house, Emma found herself drawn once again to the porch swing, where the creak of old wood mingled with the distant calls of meadowlarks. As she settled into the worn seat, the gravel crunch of a truck announced another visitor. It was Mr. Lawson again, this time carrying a battered thermos and a rough-hewn smile. "Thought you might be needing a friend," he said, settling beside her. Emma accepted the thermos gratefully, the warmth of the coffee a small comfort against the uncertainty that lingered. "Thank you," she said softly. He looked out over the land, his eyes scanning the horizon. "That ranch has secrets, Emma. Things that don't show up on any map or in any appraisal. You've got to listen to the land, feel its rhythms. That's how you'll find what's been hidden all these years." Emma nodded, intrigued by his words. "How did you come to know so much about it?" Mr. Lawson shrugged, a hint of mystery in his gaze. "Old-timers told stories when I was a boy. Stories about water running deep beneath the surface, about soil that could raise anything if you treated it right. Most folks forgot, but it's still there, waiting. You're the first in a long time to ask about it." The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows that stretched across the fields like fingers reaching into the past. Emma felt the enormity of the task ahead, but also the spark of hope kindled by Mr. Lawson's quiet faith. As darkness settled, Emma found herself back on the porch, the cool night air filled with the scent of sage and earth. The town's doubts still echoed in her mind, but now they were tempered by a growing sense of purpose. She wasn't just a pregnant woman buying a rundown ranch. She was a steward of something larger, a keeper of a legacy waiting to be reclaimed. And with Mr. Lawson's cryptic encouragement lingering in her thoughts, Emma realized that perhaps the ranch held more than just land. It held the key to her future and the future of the child she carried. The challenge was daunting, but for the first time since her world had shifted, she felt ready to face it head on. The morning sun filtered softly through the cracked window panes as Emma pushed open the front door of the ranch house for the first time since the purchase. The air inside was thick with dust and the faint scent of aged wood, but beneath the neglect, there was an undeniable warmth that seemed to welcome her home. She stepped inside cautiously, the wooden floorboards creaking beneath her boots as if greeting an old friend. The house was a patchwork of wear and time. Wallpaper peeled in curling strips, and the faded, floral patterns whispered of days when laughter had filled these rooms. Emma's fingers traced the edges of a windowsill, rough beneath her touch, but solid. A reminder that though battered, this place had endured. She moved through the rooms slowly, each step revealing more of the house's character and history. In the kitchen, chipped porcelain sinks stood silent, and the cupboards hung slightly ajar, their hinges groaning with disuse. A thin layer of dust blanketed the counters, but Emma imagined the meals once prepared here, the stories shared over steaming cups of coffee. The living room held a faded sofa, its upholstery torn but still inviting, and a cracked hearth waiting patiently for a fire to warm its stones. Emma pictured herself there, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, rocking her child as the sun dipped beyond the horizon. Her exploration led her upstairs, where narrow hallways opened into bedrooms that smelled faintly of cedar and memories. She paused before a small room at the end of the hall, its window framing a view of the sprawling fields beyond. This, she decided, would be the nursery, a place where new life and hope would take root. As she descended the stairs, a glint caught her eye near the baseboard of the hallway. Kneeling down, Emma uncovered a folded piece of parchment, yellowed with age, but carefully preserved. The handwriting was elegant, looping in a style that spoke of a time long past. Unfolding the letter, Emma read quietly, her breath catching as the words unfolded a story she had not expected. The letter was from a previous owner of the ranch, a man whose name she recognized from the town's history, a figure whispered about in the local tavern, known both for his hard work and the mysteries that surrounded his life. The letter spoke of the land's potential, of hidden springs that nourished the soil and secret groves where the earth's energy thrived. It was a personal testament to the ranch's promise, a plea to future caretakers to honor the land and nurture its gifts. Emma's heart swelled with a mixture of awe and responsibility. This was more than a rundown property. It was a legacy waiting to be reclaimed, a connection to the past that could guide her future. The day slipped away as she pored over the letter and the small stack of papers tucked beneath it. Maps, sketches, and notes that hinted at the ranch's forgotten riches. Among them was a hand-drawn chart marking locations of wells and old structures, some of which still stood on the property. The discovery illuminated the purpose behind her purchase, deepening her resolve to restore the ranch not just as a home, but as a sanctuary for the life growing inside her and the generations to come. That evening, as the sun painted the sky in hues of gold and rose, Emma sat on the porch once more, the letter folded carefully beside her. The townsfolk's doubts still lingered at the edges of her thoughts, but now they were softened by the tangible connection she felt to the land. She imagined the ranch as it once was, a place of vitality and promise, and vowed to bring it back to life. The journey ahead would be arduous, but armed with the knowledge she had uncovered and the quiet strength swelling within her, Emma felt ready to begin. As the stars emerged, twinkling like distant fires, Emma closed her eyes and breathed deeply, the cool night air mingling with the scent of earth and sage. In this moment, surrounded by the silent witness of the land and sky, she embraced the quiet hope that the ranch held, a hope that would carry her through the trials to come. The days that followed were filled with the steady rhythm of discovery, each morning breaking over the ranch with the promise of something new. Emma's footsteps grew more confident as she explored the grounds, uncovering pockets of life amid the overgrown fields and crumbling structures. The ranch was no longer just a forgotten piece of land. It was becoming a place she belonged to, and that belonged to her. One afternoon, as the sun beat down mercilessly, Emma ventured toward the old barn, its weathered timbers groaning under the weight of years. The door creaked open reluctantly, revealing a dim interior cluttered with remnants of a past life. Dust motes floated in the shafts of light that pierced the gloom, settling on rusted tools and stacks of faded crates. In the far corner, something caught Emma's eye. A narrow trapdoor, nearly hidden beneath a pile of old hay bales. Heart pounding with curiosity, she cleared the debris and knelt to open it. The hinges protested, but with a final tug, the door gave way to reveal a steep wooden staircase descending into shadow. A cool, damp scent rose from below as Emma flicked on her flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness to reveal a cellar that had been sealed off for decades. The walls were lined with rough stone, and the floor was scattered with remnants of old crates and forgotten equipment. As she moved deeper into the cellar, Emma's light fell upon a collection of weathered journals stacked neatly on a shelf. Their leather covers were cracked and worn, but the pages within held meticulous handwriting. Records of the ranch's daily life, weather patterns, and planting cycles dating back nearly a century. She gingerly opened one, the brittle pages whispering secrets of a time when the land had flourished under the care of a family whose connection to the earth was profound. The journals spoke of hard winters and bountiful summers, of challenges faced and overcome, and of a deep respect for the land that sustained them. One entry stood out, a detailed account of a man who had once owned the ranch, Emma's great-grandfather, a figure shrouded in local legend. His words painted a portrait of a man devoted to the soil, whose knowledge of the land's hidden springs and fertile patches had allowed the ranch to thrive against the odds. Reading his reflections, Emma felt a surge of connection, not just to the land, but to the lineage that had come before her. The ranch was more than property. It was a legacy etched into the very earth she now stood upon. As the afternoon sun waned, Emma carefully gathered the journals, knowing they were treasures that could guide her restoration efforts. She carried them back into the light, the weight of history both humbling and inspiring. Outside, the breeze had picked up, rustling the leaves and stirring the grasses. Emma paused to look across the fields, imagining the ranch as it once was, a vibrant homestead alive with activity and hope. The challenges of the present seemed less daunting when viewed through the lens of those who had persevered before her. That evening, as she settled by the hearth, Emma spread the journals on the worn table, tracing the faded ink with reverence. The stories within their pages were a roadmap, a testament to resilience and a reminder that she was not alone in this endeavor. With each passing day, the ranch revealed more of its secrets, and Emma's resolve deepened. She was becoming both a student and a steward of this land, embracing the responsibilities that came with such a connection. Outside, the stars emerged, casting a gentle glow over the landscape. Emma closed the journals and looked out the window, the quiet strength of the past bolstering her spirit. The road ahead would be long, but with the knowledge and history she had uncovered, she was ready to face it head on. The morning air was thick with tension as Emma made her way into town, the worn journals tucked securely beneath her arm. Word had spread of her discoveries and quiet determination, and today was the day the townsfolk had gathered to confront her. The town hall, a modest building with peeling paint and creaky floors, was filled with murmurs and skeptical glances as Emma stepped inside. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of so many eyes upon her. The meeting had been called by a group of local ranchers and business owners who saw her efforts as a threat to their plans for development. To them, the ranch was nothing more than a dilapidated property ripe for sale, its potential value in the hands of those with deeper pockets and less sentimentality. A man stood at the front, his arms crossed and jaw set tight. "Emma Collins," he began, voice firm. "This town has seen enough empty promises. That ranch isn't worth the trouble. We're here to ask you to reconsider, to sell before things get complicated." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room, punctuated by nods and whispered affirmations. Emma's heart pounded, but she met the man's gaze steadily. I won't be selling, she said clearly. This ranch is more than just land to me. It's part of my family's history, and I intend to restore it, not tear it down. A woman near the back scoffed. You're alone, pregnant, and taking on a mountain you can't climb. You'll lose everything if you keep this up. Emma's eyes flashed with quiet fire. I'm not alone. I have the knowledge of those who came before me and the strength to see this through. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm asking for respect. The room fell into a hush, the firmness in her voice challenging the long-held assumptions of the gathered crowd. Slowly, a few faces softened, and tentative nods replaced hardened stares. From the back of the room, a voice spoke. Mr. Lawson's steady and resolute. Emma's right. The land's got value beyond what you see on a ledger. I've lived here long enough to know that some things are worth more than money. His endorsement shifted the atmosphere. Several others, inspired by his words and Emma's resolve, began to speak up in her favor. The tide of opinion, once so firmly against her, wavered. As the meeting drew to a close, Emma felt a cautious sense of victory. She had stood her ground, defended her vision, and begun to sow the seeds of support among those who had once doubted her. Walking home under the late afternoon sun, Emma was met by a few townspeople offering help, tools, advice, even a promise of labor when the time came. It was a small but significant sign that the community might be ready to embrace her efforts. That evening, as the ranch was bathed in the golden light of sunset, Emma stood at the edge of the fields, feeling the gentle breeze brush against her face. The road ahead was still uncertain, but with newfound allies and a growing network of support, the challenge seemed less daunting. She turned toward the house, the journals and maps spread across the kitchen table, awaiting her attention. Each page was a reminder of the legacy she was determined to protect, a legacy that now included the hope of a community beginning to believe alongside her. Inside, the quiet hum of the night settled over the ranch. Emma lit a lantern, its warm glow filling the room as she prepared to plan the next steps. The land was calling, its secrets waiting to be uncovered, and Emma was ready to answer. The weeks that followed tested Emma's resolve in ways she hadn't anticipated. The promise of spring, usually a time of growth and renewal, arrived with a harsh drought that gripped the land in its relentless grasp. The fields, once hopeful with wild grasses and budding blooms, wilted under the unforgiving sun, their edges curling into brittle brown. Emma stood on the porch one evening, the dry wind tugging at her coat and whispering warnings through the skeletal branches of the mesquite trees. The ranch, so full of promise just weeks before, now seemed fragile, its future as parched as the soil beneath her feet. Financial worries pressed heavily on her mind. The cost of repairs and restoration mounted, and with no steady income, Emma found herself weighing the possibility of selling the ranch. A thought that gnawed at her heart. She had come this far, but the path ahead was clouded with uncertainty. One particularly stifling afternoon, as Emma surveyed the cracked earth of the pasture, the familiar rumble of a truck drew her attention. Mr. Lawson's old pickup rolled up the dusty lane, its bed loaded with supplies and tools. He climbed down, wiping sweat from his brow, and offered a weathered smile. "Thought you might need a hand," he said, setting down crates filled with seeds, irrigation parts, and sturdy gloves. "This drought's tough on us all, but there's ways to work with it." Emma's relief was immediate and profound. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with gratitude. "I didn't know where to start." Mr. Lawson nodded, his eyes scanning the parched fields. "First thing's water. We'll dig a few shallow wells and set up drip irrigation. It's slow work, but it'll keep the roots alive until the rains come back. Together, they set to work, the hours stretching long under the blazing sun. Emma learned quickly, absorbing Mr. Lawson's practical wisdom and time-tested techniques. The simple act of planting seeds, carefully spaced and watered, became a symbol of hope amid the desolation. As the days passed, a small group of townspeople joined in, inspired by Emma's determination and Mr. Lawson's encouragement. Hands that had once doubted now pulled weeds, fixed fences, and cleared debris. The ranch was beginning to stir with life again, its revival a shared effort. Yet, challenges persisted. Financial strain tightened its grip, bills piled up, and Emma found herself stretching every dollar. Nights were restless, her thoughts a tangled web of worry and hope, of what she had lost and what she still sought to build. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emma sat on the porch steps, her hands resting lightly on her swollen belly. The baby inside her stirred, a quiet reminder of the future she was fighting for. Mr. Lawson joined her, handing her a flask of water and settling beside her. "You're stronger than you know," he said quietly. "This land's lucky to have you." Emma smiled faintly, the weight of his words settling like a balm. "I just hope I'm enough." He placed a reassuring hand on hers. "You are, and you're not alone." The drought would not last forever, and neither would the hardships it brought. But in the companionship forged beneath the vast Texas sky, Emma found a renewed strength. Together, they would weather the storm, tending to the land and to the dreams rooted deep within the soil. As twilight gave way to night, Emma looked up at the stars, their steady light a reminder that even in the darkest times, hope endured. The ranch was fragile, but so was she, and both were ready to fight for the life they deserved. The sky darkened with heavy clouds that roiled across the horizon, a tempest gathering its strength over the sprawling ranch. Emma felt the tension in the air as the first distant rumbles of thunder echoed through the valley. The drought that had gripped the land for weeks was finally breaking, but the storm promised challenges of its own. Inside the old house, Emma paced nervously, her hand resting protectively on her swollen belly. At 7 months pregnant, every ache and cramp sent a ripple of anxiety through her. The storm outside intensified, rain lashing against the windows, wind howling like a restless spirit seeking entrance. Suddenly, a sharp pain seized her, swift and fierce. Emma gasped, clutching the edge of the kitchen table as another wave crashed over her. Labor had begun unexpectedly, and the isolation of the ranch pressed down on her like the weight of the storm itself. She tried to steady her breathing, recalling the lessons and stories from her grandmother's midwife. But panic threatened to overtake her. With no cell service and the nearest neighbors miles away, Emma knew she had to act quickly. In the dim light, she reached for the silver bell her grandmother had left behind. A small, delicate object that seemed out of place in the rugged surroundings. With trembling fingers, she rang it, the clear chime cutting through the storm's fury. Minutes that stretched like hours passed before the sound of tires crunching on gravel reached her ears. A figure appeared through the rain-soaked darkness. Margaret, the local midwife, known for her quiet strength and years of experience. Margaret moved swiftly, setting up a makeshift birthing space near the fireplace, her calm presence a balm amid the chaos. She guided Emma through the labor with steady words and practiced hands, reminding her of the strength coursing through generations of women in their family. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the cabin, a different kind of life was unfolding. As dawn broke, painting the sky in soft hues of pink and gold, Emma gave birth to a healthy baby boy, his cries mingling with the fading thunder. Tears streamed down Emma's face as she held him close, the weight of exhaustion and relief settling over her. The ranch, battered but resilient, had witnessed a new beginning, a symbol of hope amid adversity. Margaret smiled gently. "You've done well, Emma. This child is lucky to have you." Emma looked out the window at the clearing storm, feeling the quiet power of survival and renewal. The journey ahead would be long, but with her son in her arms and the land beneath her feet, she knew she was ready to face whatever came next. The sun rose over Willow Creek with a soft glow, casting gentle light on the freshly painted porch and the vibrant fields that now stretched beyond the ranch house. The birth of Emma's son had marked more than just the beginning of a new life. It seemed to signal a shift in the community itself, a subtle thawing in the town's attitude toward her and her efforts. As word spread of her perseverance through the storm and the arrival of her healthy baby, the whispers of doubt began to fade, replaced by nods of respect and, in some cases, quiet admiration. The same townsfolk who had once questioned her resolve now offered smiles and occasional helping hands. One morning, Emma found herself standing alongside Mr. Lawson and a small group of neighbors, working together to repair a broken fence that bordered the pasture. The rhythm of hammer on wood and the murmur of shared stories filled the air, weaving a sense of camaraderie that had been absent for so long. Emma wiped the sweat from her brow, glancing down at her son, nestled safely in a sling against her chest. The weight of responsibility was heavier now, but so was the depth of purpose. She was no longer just restoring a piece of land. She was nurturing a home, a community, a future. Inside the house, the restoration was progressing steadily. Fresh paint brightened the walls, and the creaking floorboards were repaired with care. Each nail hammered and brushstroke applied was a testament to the collective hope invested in the ranch's revival. In quiet moments, Emma reflected on the journey that had brought her here, the skepticism, the setbacks, the unexpected allies. She found strength in the stories preserved in the journals and letters, drawing inspiration from ancestors who had faced their own trials with unwavering determination. As the weeks passed, the fields began to respond to the tender care they received. Sprouts pushed through the soil, promising harvests yet to come. The land, once parched and forlorn, was awakening, mirroring the transformation within Emma herself. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emma sat on the porch with her son, watching as fireflies danced among the grasses. The quiet hum of life around her was a soothing balm, a reminder that even the smallest flickers could illuminate the darkest nights. She smiled softly, her heart full. The ranch was no longer just a dream or a burden. It was a living, breathing testament to resilience and renewal. And as she cradled her son, she knew that the story she was writing was only just beginning. The quiet hum of restoration filled the ranch house as Emma carefully sorted through the cellar's contents one afternoon. Sunlight filtering through the dusty windows and casting a warm glow over the room. Among the crates and forgotten tools, she uncovered a small wooden chest, its surface worn smooth by time. With a mixture of reverence and curiosity, she lifted the lid and peered inside. Nestled within were heirlooms that told stories beyond the reach of words. Silver spoons engraved with initials, faded photographs of stern-faced ancestors, and delicate jewelry pieces that gleamed despite their age. Alongside these treasures was a bundle of letters tied with a faded ribbon, fragile yet intact. Emma unfolded the topmost letter with care. The handwriting was unmistakable. the flowing script of her great-grandfather, penned decades ago but preserved, like a whispered secret. The letter was a heartfelt plea, urging the recipient to protect the ranch and its legacy, to honor the land and the family that had nurtured it through trials and triumphs. Reading his words, Emma felt the weight of history settle upon her shoulders. Not as a burden, but as a mantle of responsibility and pride. The letter spoke of values that transcended time: stewardship, resilience, and a deep connection to the earth that had sustained generations. As she continued to explore the chest, Emma found more than sentimental keepsakes. Hidden among the heirlooms were documents, deeds, maps, and appraisals that revealed the ranch's true worth. Far from the overlooked property the town had dismissed, the land held significant historical and monetary value, its past riches waiting to be acknowledged and preserved. The discovery brought a swell of relief and hope. The financial strain that had loomed over her began to ease, replaced by the promise of security that could safeguard the ranch's future. More than that, it reaffirmed her belief that she was part of a lineage dedicated to this land, a lineage she was determined to continue. With the legal proofs and valuables in hand, Emma sought the counsel of a trusted attorney in town, who confirmed the legitimacy of the documents and offered guidance on protecting the ranch from any future claims or development pressures. Armed with this newfound knowledge, Emma felt a renewed sense of empowerment. She was no longer just a caretaker struggling against odds. She was the rightful heir to a legacy rich in history and promise. That evening, as the ranch settled into the soft embrace of twilight, Emma penned a letter of her own, an entry in the journal her great-grandfather had once kept, a record of her journey and a pledge to honor the past while forging a future. Outside, the stars began to pierce the darkening sky, their steady light a beacon of continuity and hope. Emma closed her journal, the echoes of her ancestors' wisdom mingling with the quiet strength that now defined her. The ranch was secure, its story preserved and protected, ready to be passed on to generations yet to come. The afternoon sun bathed Willow Creek in a golden glow as townsfolk gathered in the open field beside the ranch house, their faces alight with smiles and renewed hope. The long journey of restoration had culminated in this moment. A celebration not just of land reclaimed, but of community rekindled. Emma stood at the center, cradling her son in her arms, watching as neighbors and friends mingled beneath strings of lanterns that swayed gently in the warm breeze. Children ran laughing through the tall grasses, their voices weaving into the chorus of cicadas and distant bird calls. A makeshift stage had been set up near the barn, adorned with wildflowers and weathered wood. The mayor stepped forward, his tone sincere as he addressed the crowd. Today, we honor not only the revival of this historic ranch, but the spirit of a woman whose determination and strength have brought us all together. Applause rippled through the crowd, and Emma felt a swell of gratitude rise within her chest. The skepticism and whispers that had once shadowed her steps were now replaced by nods of respect and heartfelt congratulations. As the festivities unfolded, Emma moved among the guests, accepting offers of help and sharing stories of the ranch's history uncovered through old journals and letters. Each tale deepened the community's connection to the land, transforming it from a mere property into a living heritage. Later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in hues of lavender and amber, Emma found a quiet moment on the porch. The soft coos of her sleeping son mingled with the gentle rustle of the evening breeze. She gazed out over the fields, now lush and green, where the promise of harvests yet to come stirred in the soil. The journey had been arduous, marked by doubt, hardship, and unexpected allies. But it had also been filled with discovery, resilience, and triumph. Emma's thoughts turned to the future she envisioned for the ranch. A sanctuary where history was honored, nature nurtured, and family flourished. A place where her son could grow rooted in the strength of the land and the stories of those who came before. With a deep breath, she opened the journal she had begun months earlier, its pages filled with reflections, plans, and dreams. Pen in hand, she began to write. Not just of the past, but of the new beginnings unfolding beneath the vast Texas sky. As stars emerged one by one, blinking softly against the night, Emma felt the weight of her ancestors' legacy and the lightness of new hope intertwine within her. The ranch stood as a testament to endurance and renewal, its story etched into the earth and carried forward by the woman who had dared to believe. And so, beneath the endless expanse of sky, Emma penned the first lines of her own chapter, ready to nurture the land, her family, and the legacy that would one day be hers to pass on.